All right, I'll get started here. Good evening. My name is Catherine from SEB Housing, and this is the information section for the 3 affordable rental units at the residences at the Met in Plymouth, Massachusetts. So the purpose of this information session is to give a little bit of background information on the affordable units. I'm also going to discuss the application and lottery processes and what to expect after the lottery. There's some slides I'll be flipping through, so you'll see them on your screen. And if you have any questions during the session, please feel free to let me know or type them into the chat on Zoom. This info session is being recorded because it's going to be made available on SEB Housing's YouTube channel after tonight. So if you have any questions after tonight's session, or if you're watching this later on, you're able to get in touch with us by emailing us at info@sebhousing.com or giving us a call. So just for some background information on who we are, SEB Housing is an off-site affordable housing consulting group. So we're not the on-site management team at the residences at the Met. We've been hired by the developer to market the affordable units, conduct this information session, collect and review applications to determine applicants' eligibility for the lottery, and then we'll eventually run the lottery. So in the initial phases, we're going to be applicants' main contact rather than the management office, but then further along in the process, you as an applicant would be in touch with the management team. There are a few steps in this process, the first being to apply for the lottery. So to be found eligible for the lottery, based on your application that you submitted in, is the first step in the process. The second step in the process is to get in touch with the leasing office for them to determine your lease eligibility. So that's separate from the screenings that you'll be doing with SEB Housing, and it will probably include typical rental history checks, credit checks, that sort of thing. And then the third step in the process is once you've been approved by the management team, you'll then be directed back to SEB Housing so that we can verify your income, assets, and all of that information that you initially included on your lottery application. You'll have about 10 days to get that information into us. So to apply for this lottery, you don't have to submit supporting documentation or verifications. You just need to self-report your income. Okay, so if you haven't already, you should go to our website. On the Affordable Housing Opportunities page, you would select I want to rent, and then you select residences at the Met. That will take you to a page specific to this property with downloadable versions of the lottery application, information packet, and the information packet contains most of the information that I will be going through tonight. So if you choose to apply for one of these affordable units, you'll need to complete that lottery application, and you can submit it to us in one of several ways. So you can, the most popular way is to email or scan it to us. You can do that. You'd send it to info@sebhousing.com. You could, if you're in the Needham area, you could drop it off at our 24-hour drop box at 257 Hillside Ave in Needham. You could fax it to us. The fax number is on the first page of the application, or you can send it by regular mail. So we encourage everybody that's interested to get that lottery application in early. It is fairly brief. It should only take you a few moments to complete. Applications are due by June 24th. So applications would need to be postmarked by that date to be able to be eligible for the lottery. And you do not need to be a Plymouth resident to apply for this lottery. All right, so the residences at the Met. So it's a brand new development located in Plymouth. There's going to be a total of 6 rental units within the building. That's a photo of the building there on your screen. It's going to include 3 affordable apartments, which are going to be leased to households with incomes at or below 80% of the area median income. The apartments are close to local restaurants, White Horse Beach, and the units feature in-unit laundry, stainless steel appliances, and granite countertops. Tenants will be responsible for the cost of propane gas heat, electric hot water, electricity and water. Sewer charges and parking are included in the rent, and pets are permitted. There is no pet fee if you do have a pet that has been approved by management. So the rents, there are 2 one-bedroom units, both at different price points, and then there is a 2-bedroom unit. So there is the first 1-bedroom unit is going to be renting for $1,800, and the unit is located in the basement level, and there are 720 square feet in that unit. The second 1-bedroom unit will be renting for $2,000, and that unit is located on the first floor and has 816 square feet. And then the 2-bedroom unit is going to rent for $2,150, and that has 900 square feet. That's also located on the first floor. The affordable unit rents are not set in accordance with an applicant's income or financial circumstances. So that means that the rent doesn't change if your income does, similar to what maybe a housing voucher would do. The rents are based off of a formula that is also based off of HUD, which is Housing and Urban Development Area Median Income for the Boston and Plymouth area. So the rent could increase once per year. It usually does, or at least changes once per year, usually in the spring when HUD releases their area median income for the year. Usually the increases are quite modest. You would always have a advance notice of any increases, and the rent could not increase in the middle of your lease term. So since we anticipate there's going to be more interested in eligible applicants than there are available units, the apartments are going to be made available during through this lottery process. And they're only going to be made available to households who make or have a total household income at or below 80% of the area median income. All right, so the eligibility requirements for this affordable housing program. So there's 4 main eligibility requirements. The first is that households need to have qualifying income and assets. There's a table on the screen, there's 2 tables on your screen right now that show what those income parameters are. But basically a household income cannot be above what the maximum income limit is. So you'll see there that a household size of 1, if you're 1 person, your total household income cannot be above $91,200 per year. The second item to keep in mind for eligibility purposes is that household priority is going to be given based on household composition. So for example, if you're a 1-person household, or maybe you're a couple that shares a bedroom, you're generally considered to be a type 1 household, and you can apply for the affordable 2-bedroom unit, but larger type 2 households are going to have priority on those waiting lists. And you will be placed on a waiting list behind those type 2 households, those larger households. The third eligibility criteria is that applicants cannot own a home. You would need to sell your house before you were able to apply for a unit at the residences at the Met. And then the fourth eligibility criteria doesn't come up very often, but households cannot have financial interest in the development and can't be considered a related party. So if you work for the developer or the management company, or you have some sort of relationship with them, you will not be eligible for the lottery. So to circle back on the first eligibility criteria, income and assets of the household. So since these are affordable units, they're being made available at rents that are lower than identical or very similar units within the building. Again, you do not need to submit verification of your income, like pay stubs or anything like that, to apply for this lottery. You will need to submit that after the lottery, once you moved on to the next step in the process. You will be provided with a documentation requirements guide when you are approved for the lottery. So you'll have a link that is sent to you by email so that you know exactly what you will need to provide after the lottery to verify your income. So again, even though you don't need to submit any of this information now, I still want to give you a basic overview of how your income will be counted for this affordable housing program. So Income for the program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So that includes, bonuses, overtime, all of the funds that are coming into your household. What it doesn't include is wage income of minors. So if you have a 16-year-old who's working, for example, their wage income does not need to count towards the total household income. And then if you have a full-time student, so maybe a college student who is working but is over the age of 18, if they're a dependent of yours, we're only going to count the first for $480 of their wages. And we do need to count gross income, even though most of us are not taking home the amount that our paycheck lists because of taxes and insurance and things like that. But unfortunately, we do need to count your gross income. And then some households have income that is very steady. You get the same paycheck amount every week or every other week. And then some people are self-employed or maybe are working seasonally. So depending on what your situation is, we may need to look further back into the past to verify what your income is. And then if you're self-employed, you will be asked to provide a profit and loss statement to show your business expenses. And then when you're writing down your sources of income on your application, just make sure that you're including everything. So not just wages, but if you have Social Security coming into the household, Social Security payments, maybe a pension, unemployment benefits, that sort of thing, just make sure that that is written down. There is no minimum income amount for the affordable housing program. However, most management companies, including the team at the residences at the Met, want to be sure that all tenants can afford the rent. So regardless of whether or not a tenant is renting a market rate apartment or an affordable apartment, the management company sets minimum income limits. And they're on your screen right now. So to rent the one bedroom that is going for $1,800, your income would need to be at least $54,000. To rent the one bedroom that's going for $2,000 a month, you would need to make $60,000, and then for the two bedrooms, $64,500. Now these minimum amounts are not set in stone. So if you have, a sizable amount of assets in the bank and you're able to access those funds, the leasing office may take a look at your finances and say, you make enough money to rent the $1,800 apartment, even though maybe your total household income is only $53,000 rather than the $54,000. So the maximum income limits are set in stone. Those are a program requirement, while the minimum income limits are going to be up to the leasing office's discretion. If you have a housing voucher, like a Section 8 voucher, you can disregard the minimum income limits because those won't apply to you since your your voucher administrator will be paying a portion of your rent. There is no asset limit for rental opportunities. So you could be retired, maybe you have a sizable amount of assets in the bank. That's fine. You're still eligible for this opportunity. Although there is no asset limit, we do still need to collect information related to your assets. And that's because there could be income that's generated by some of your assets. So we will be asking later on in the process for checking, savings account statements, that sort of thing. All right, so again, we suggest that you get your lottery application in whenever you decide that you are interested in this property. And once we receive that application, we'll review it. We'll contact you if we have any questions or if there's any information that appears to be missing. If you're found eligible for the lottery, you're going to be sent a lottery application number by email. That number will be in the form of a series of numbers. That's the number that's going to be drawn in the lottery. So your name isn't going to be called during the lottery drawing or anything like that. So that number is meant to be an anonymous identifier, and it's not a ranking of any sort at this stage. It just corresponds with the order in which you were approved for the lottery. So if you were the very first person to submit and be approved submit an application and be approved for this lottery, your number would be A.001. Also in that email, you want to make sure you're reviewing that email carefully, because it's going to also confirm what bedroom size that you apply for. So just make sure that that's correct when you get that email notification from us. The documentation requirements guide that I mentioned will also be attached to that email. If at any point during the process you're found to be ineligible for the lottery, maybe you're over income, you'll be informed by email, but you are encouraged to contact us with any questions. The lottery itself is going to be held on July 10th at 6 o'clock. It's going to be the same format as this information session, meaning that it's going to be by Zoom at 6 p.m. And depending on the number of applicants we have, the lottery numbers will either be drawn from a box and it will be recorded. I'll screen share that, or they will be digitally randomized and the results will be screened with you, or will be shared with you via a screen share, just like this slideshow is. During the lottery, every lottery number is going to be drawn. So sometimes when we think of lotteries, we think, there's 3 affordable apartments, so they're going to draw 3 numbers. That's not what's going to happen in this lottery, though. In general, it is going to be more beneficial for you to be called early in the lottery, but really the purpose of the lottery is to establish an order of priority for the waiting list. So if you're watching the lottery drawing, you're not going to know where you fall exactly during the drawing itself, because I will still need to sort the results onto the waiting list. So not all households are going to have applied for both unit sizes, both a 1 or a 2 bedroom unit. So as we're pulling the numbers, you're not going to know who applied for which unit size, which is why you won't know your placement on the waiting list during the lottery. So keep in mind that households who were entered into the lottery could be found ineligible by SCB Housing or by the leasing office at any stage, or they might just decide not to rent an apartment. So if you are drawn later on in the lottery and you don't have one of the top spots, that doesn't mean that you won't be moving forward, because as households ahead of you on the waiting list drop off, you will move up on the waiting list. So the night of the lottery, I will sort the results, and the waiting lists will be sent out to you later on that night by email. It'll come from info@scbhousing.com. So when you're reviewing that email, you'll see your lottery application number on the waiting list, and at that point, you'll be able to see where you fall on the waiting list. And you'll have a better idea as to whether or not you should be waiting for a call from the leasing office, or if you are going to need to wait to see if someone ahead of you drops off the list. So following the lottery, you will be in touch with the management office from there, and your contact information will be shared with them. You'll have their contact information, and you'll have about 5 days to connect with them to be able to do your lease screening. Again, that is separate from SCB Housing's screenings for the Affordable Housing Program. Your lease screening with the leasing office could entail, the rental history check, the credit check, that sort of thing that you may be familiar with from renting before. It's likely that more than one household will be screened for every apartment, and management companies often do this because they don't want the process of leasing the apartments slowed down by households who don't qualify. So don't be surprised if there's more than one household being screened at the same time for one unit. And that's a reason that we ask that you do not, if you're currently renting right now, don't give notice to your current property owner just because you maybe are going to be one of the top households on these waiting lists, because you still have a few steps in the process before you're able to rent the apartment. Once you are lease approved by the leasing office, that's the point in this process where having a position near the top of the waiting list is beneficial, because you'll be able to go to the apartment building and see, which unit you like the best, and you'll be able to reserve an apartment from there. Once you've reserved an affordable apartment, the leasing office at the residences at the Met is going to notify SCB Housing, and we're going to coordinate your program eligibility with you. So at that point, you'll be asked to submit your income, asset, and tax documentation, and we will perform your final program eligibility review. So hopefully you've been able at that point to get all of the information that was listed in the documentation requirements guide, and you've gathered all that documentation and you're able to submit it to us within about 10 days. If you don't get everything into us right away, that's fine. We're going to work with you to make sure that you get that completed application into us. And then once you're leased in one of these affordable apartments, you're done with income screening until your lease renewal date. So, you know, we hope that you have loved living in the unit and you want to continue doing so after that first year of the lease. If you do, you would just need to recertify your income with the leasing office before your lease renewal. So these units are available now. So if you were to sign a lease for August 1st, for example, because the lottery is not until July, if you were signing a lease for August 1st, at some point in the spring of 2025, you would be recertifying with the leasing office. And then if during lease renewal, if your income has increased and it's now above that 80% of AMI amount, that's perfectly fine. Households remain eligible for the affordable housing apartment as long as their income does not exceed 140% of the current AMI. So that would mean that a household of two would have qualified for this lottery with an income at or below $104,200. That same family next year could make up to $145,880 because that would be 140% of the area median income. And you'd still be able to rent this affordable apartment at an affordable price, or at the affordable rent amount. So that covers all of the information from the information packet that I wanted to get through tonight. If you're watching this after the fact and you have questions for us, please reach out to us at info@scbhousing.com. And again, applications are due June 24th for this lottery. So if you're interested, you have about a little bit less than a month to get your application in, and we look forward to receiving it. And the lottery will be July 10th. Thanks so much and have a good night.